Welcome. Welcome to our webinar, COVID-19 Impacts on the Thai Tourism Supply Chain. My name is Graham Harper, and I work with the Pacific Asia Travel Association, PATA, in the Sustainability and Social Responsibility Department. Today, it's our pleasure to be able to present the survey that we've been conducting since November of last year. We wanted to know what the impacts on the informal workers in the tourism supply chain were for COVID-19. Now, much of what we learned was maybe not too much of a surprise, but it was deeply, deeply meaningful. And that's because of the stories that we heard from people working in tourism. It was because of the stories of both difficulties and challenges, but also perseverance and resilience to the situation. And so today, we will start off with a presentation by my colleague, Pimpakan Aratakan, our Manager of Relationships and Partnerships at PATA. And she will go through and present the main findings of the survey and interviews that we conducted. After that, we have several guests who were involved in the survey, and we'll have a panel discussion to be able to understand more deeply what was coming out, what were those stories, what were the impacts. So we have a lot to cover today. And as part of that, I want to let you know that if you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A section of your toolbar. We will be monitoring the Q&A throughout, and if we can answer them on the go, we will. If not, at the end of the panel discussion, we will have the Q&A session to try to answer any of your questions. Once again, it is our real pleasure to welcome you today, and we hope that you find it informative and helpful. With that, I'd like to ask Pimpakan Kun Phon to please take over. Turn on your camera. Thank you, Phon. And you can start sharing your screen. Phon, thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay, please let me know if it's on.
Yes, Phon, that comes through perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And hello, everyone. My name is Pimpika Atakan. And today I would like to share an overall of our research finding of the COVID-19 impacts on the Thai tourism supply chain. This survey is a collaboration between Pacific Asia Travel Association, a non-profit membership association connecting with private and public sector globally, and Focusright, a service consultancy services focusing on human rights, with other special focus in social responsibility in tourism. This survey is the follow-up project of 2019 Human Rights Report conducted in Thailand and Myanmar. This survey, we aim to understand how the pandemic has affected informal workers' life, what is their current situation, how they deal with the pandemic, and to understand what they need to restart their business when the international tourism reopens. The survey was conducted in December 2020 by the COVID-19 impacted tour guides. The interviews were made with 72 informal workers. 20% of the interviewees are taxi and van drivers, including street vendors. And those informal workers also include freelance guide, local restaurant, guest house staff, or nightlife and massage worker, for example. The majority of the respondents are women by 54% and aged between 41 to 64 years old. The focus destination for our survey are Chiang Mai, Bangkok, and Phuket. Next, I would like to talk about the result of the survey. The result of the impact is not surprising. We have found that 94% of the informal workers have lost their job, with the vast majority of financial hardship. We also wanted to know how they survived during the pandemic. We have found that most of them had to use their own saving money or sell their personal stuff. Some went back to their hometown and get the support from family and friends. Not all of them received the support from the governments in terms of the financial with the special campaign. For those who lost their job, they had to find part-time jobs or getting a new job. Very few of them can get a bank loan approval as well. Next, I would like to talk about the mindset, one of an interesting findings from this survey. Through all the results, we also receive a positive and negative messaging from different participants. We have found that the mindset is affecting how they're going to deal or live with the situation. As the international tourism is playing an important role to those informal workers' life, 89% of them need the country to be reopened for the international tourism, and they are ready to restart and do the business and welcome back those international tourists. We also wanted to know what support they need when the country reopens for the international tourism. 70% of them need the trainings on the post-COVID-19 on health and hygiene standards, and to make sure that both tourists and workers will follow the same protocol. Moreover, they also need the training on marketing strategy and product development to help them grow their business. Also, a reduction of the venue rental fee would be helpful for them. Meanwhile, they do not want to find new location doing the business, and they do not want bank loan as it will create them more debt. So these are the results that I would like to share with the key findings. After we receive the results, we also have shared the information and had a consultation with the destination management companies and civil society to have a better understanding of what support we can give to the formal in workers. The DMCs have shared with us that they are also struggling at the moment. They had to reduce staff, and also there is a reduction of the salary and working hours as well. However, they are willing to help the informal workers if there is funding available. As for the NGOs, one of them have shared with us that they have found new way getting a support, and that support they can turn to the tourism to be more sustainable. The NGO also mentioned about social security benefits that the informal workers should have this access as well. Also, there should be an equality to get the support for the government with the special campaign. On the assumptions, international tourism for Thailand will be reopened in the second quarter of 2022 or maybe later. The vaccination program for Thai people might be finished until 2022 as well. Support is needed for Thai tourism supply chain until March 2022. Again, private sector can help if there is financial support available for them. To finish our research, PARA organized an industry roundtable discussion on March 23rd with DMCs, NGOs, tour operators, the Embassy of Switzerland in Thailand, and Thai community development organizations. The DMCs has stressed about the retention of their key workers, such as van drivers or tour guides. All various types of trainings can be organized by collaborating between multi-sectors. They can also help to support the follow workers to preserve tourism supply chain. With that support, we also bring a resiliency to tourism as well. And there should be an equality access to the social security benefits with other special benefits from the government. Last but not least, a safety reopening for international tourism is essential. Thank you very much. That's the information that I would like to share with you today. Back to you, Graham.
Yeah, Fawn, thank you very much for that overview. I mean, that's a lot of information to take in quickly. Just before we go on to the panel discussion, though, I mean, you were the person doing the liaising, connecting with all of the tour guides that were doing the interviews. Was there anything that really stood out in particular for you when, you know, what the tour guides were telling you? Any stories that were powerful?
I think first is that the result, yes, it's not surprising, but I appreciate for the tour guides that support with our survey, that I think they didn't prepare as well what the result will be like. So so now we know, and the tour guides can, it's like they are the center between the companies and those informal workers, and now we have the result.
Yeah.
So I respect that. That's quite like very useful and very informative for us.
Yeah, I think it was a very powerful experience for the guides because, we had some guides who were actually almost in tears when they were speaking about some of their experiences, because they're going out into the communities that they used to work in. And I think for myself, one of the really powerful parts was at the end of our debrief with the survey guides, when we took a photo of everyone. And they were just so smiling and so happy because they'd had this work that was meaningful within their profession. And they felt like, yes, I'm back.
Yes.
And that was a really powerful part of it.
Yes. It's like, I think they didn't expect for the result when we asked them to do the survey. They just picked that, okay, this group, we will go for an interview, but they didn't expect what's going to happen. But how they deal or how they share their experience is quite like very good.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Fawn, thank you very much for sharing that. That was very, very informative. And now I'd like to ask my colleague, Napason Wetchapram, to please turn on her camera. Napason, or Kunwai, she's been involved in the survey throughout, and she works with our sustainability and social responsibility team at PATA. She originally started as an intern, but just through her performance and hard work, she's actually reached a full-time position now with PATA as one of our sustainability experts. And why it's a pleasure to be able to introduce you and to welcome you. You will be moderating the panel discussion. So I'll turn it over to you, and we look forward to some interesting questions coming out. Why, please.
Thank you, Graham. And thank you everyone for having us today. So before we begin the panel discussion, we would like to introduce our panelists. Today we have 4 panelists from each stakeholder. Let's start at Rina Santu from EXO Travel. She's travel consultant. Rina and her team are handling supervising inbound team for various kinds of requests, from classic highlight experiences and culinary outing to ultimate culture encounters and adventure trekking adventures. She experienced very best that Thailand has to offer, with sustainability and responsible tourism in mind. Rina, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself to say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Wai, for the introduction. I've been working as a travel consultant with EXO Travels for past 6 years, working with the overseas travel agents and tour operators from different countries. But my main market is US. I'm basically responsible for advising agents, clients about suitable travel options in accordance with their needs, wants, and capabilities. At EXO, we organize trips from the beginning till the end, through planning, booking tickets, accommodations, securing rental transportation, briefing guides, contacting guests on the spot, and monitoring quality.
Thank you, Rina. And the next panelist is James Lazen, Managing Director of Scholar of Sustenance Foundation Thailand. James is leading SOS Foundation Thailand team to success in mission and operation, and working closely with both international sponsors and local partnerships to rescue the food before it goes to waste and share it to the communities in need. Hello, James.
Hi, Wai. Thank you very much for that introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, safe, and healthy. So, like what she said, I lead a group of passionate individuals who tirelessly push the agenda of eliminating food waste in this country. Like what she said, we are a food rescue foundation that redefines the way food is distributed so we can feed the communities in need. I don't know if everyone is aware that there are 27 million tons of food waste in Thailand per year, and in just Bangkok alone, there are 9,000 tons of food waste per day. And that's why we rescue surplus food so that we can help the environment, help the communities in need. We do it 7 days a week and collecting surplus food from hotels, restaurants, retail companies, manufacturing companies, and we deliver them straight to the communities. And that's what we do every day in Bangkok, Phuket, and Hua Hin.
Thank you, James. And the next panelist, we have Kun Jip or Choladi Gandhi. She's tour guide. She's tour specialist with experiences at the world's first adventure tour travel company, designed exactly for elderly people, and also for the inbound tour operator for Thailand and Southeast Asian countries with Kiri Travel. Hello, Kun Jip. Please turn on your camera and unmute yourself to say hi, everyone.
Forgot it, sorry. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Chonridi Gandhi or Jip. I am a tour guide and also trip leaders. The main customers are American and Canadian. We travel in Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia. Yeah.
And last one, we have Kun Sibyl Baumgartner, the director or co-founder of Focusright. Sibyl has 10 years of experience in the field of responsible business with a specific focus on social aspects. She has worked with companies from various industries focusing on elaborating responsible business strategies, implementing sustainable supply chain management, and developing human rights due diligence frameworks. Hello, Sibyl.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Wai, for this introduction. And I'm very honored to be on this panel today with all these interesting peers and panelists. I'm greeting everyone from Switzerland. We have been, as Focusright, we have been implementing this so-called human rights impact assessment in tourism in Thailand back in 2019. So what we actually did last year was a reaction, or also based on this impact assessment, where we had already identified specifically vulnerable groups in general in the touristic value chain. And this was just a logical next step to understand how were they now impacted by COVID in the past year. We were supported by the Swiss government to work in collaboration with PATA and all the people also present today on the panel to assess the impacts the COVID pandemic has on those more informal workers in the touristic value chain. So I'm very happy to be with all of you today.
Okay, let's start the discussion from the first question to Rina. Let's talk about Rina, what are the impacts from COVID-19 crisis on your company, your work, your colleagues as XO Travel and Life? Can you share a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Without foreign guests to Thailand since March 21, the company has no revenue for more than a year. And in absence of government support, such as furlough schemes that we have in US and Europe, some drastic restructure had been implemented for the company to survive. We had to let go of few of our colleagues, which has been very heartbreaking, and switched our office from a classic 800 square meter open space to 50 square meter co-working space. We are also on a reduced salary since then, which is also, I'm sure, which is also the case of our friends from other DMCs in Thailand.
That's difficult time.
Yeah, pretty difficult.
Okay, so thank you so much. And next, we also would like to hear from the people in the person in the middle, like from Kun Jip. This project that we just present focus on Thai informal tourism supply chain. with whom you work during the tour, being the person in the middle, talk to those workers on the ground and connect to those experience with the tourists. What is your perspective toward the survey results and our previous discussion?
Well, before I became a part of this survey and this project, I really have no idea that there are people who get really big effect through this pandemic. I just thought like, okay, this is something happened, you know, people survive and stuff. But once I got in the survey and have the direct contact and talk to the people, such as like tuk-tuk driver, workers and like sex workers, or even like former workers who used to work in hotels. And to be honest, some people are lucky. They find a new job, and then even though it's not big money, big salary, but then they found something that they love and they become happy, even more happy than they work. Such as one of the guy I interviewed, he worked in a hotel before, and he's about 40. And now he has his small stall selling food, you know, like somtam, papaya salad, and he's happy. He told me he's happy. He didn't know that he had this skill before. He never done it before, but he's quite successful. But not everybody is lucky as him. There are a lot of people that I interview and they are struggling and suffering from this. So I'm really sad and shocked that there are no people who help them or guide them, you know, like what they should do. They lost.
Yeah. So we found that all informal workers also like suffer from this crisis, of course. So next, before we talk about the next step, let's talk to Sibyl about the vision from as you are like co-founder of focusright, Human Rights for Tourism Industry organization. What do you think were the main contribution of this project?
Thank you, Wai. Yes, I think the most important point was actually to give some more visibility to the impact of COVID on the elements of a touristic value chain, which are not always considered being part of this, like the formal or traditional value chain. However, they are actually the main contributors to the experience that tourists have in a destination. Let's talk about the street food vendors, massage providers, souvenir sellers, boat drivers, tuk-tuk drivers. They're not traditionally always considered when we're talking about the tourism and touristic value chain. So in this project and through this collaboration with the DMCs, but also with the tour guides who went out in the destinations. And I mean, we must remember this was a time when we were not able to travel. So we were dependent also on having the people already in the destinations who can reach out to their contacts and finding the people. I mean, Chip explained how she went out, and some people, I remember telling her also she was having difficulties even finding them. So luckily the tour guides have those contacts, have the phone numbers of the people who are more informal. So it gives visibility, the project gave visibility to those people, and it is aiming at making them heard. And through the dialogues we had also within the industry with civil society organizations, I think it's kicking off a dialogue on the impacts, which maybe were not a surprise to many, but still weren't really talked about. So yeah, based on the impact assessment we had conducted earlier, we were able to actually go back to those people or to reach out to people that could actually raise their voice and say how they're doing. So much was not surprising, yes, but we also observed that everyone is so much busy with surviving it himself or herself. I mean, we heard from Lina also, I mean, there's huge impact on the business. So there is a limited capacity of all the actors to actually think broader and actually try to convene and find common solutions to challenges where we have to find collaborations, because everyone alone cannot reach those targets that we are trying to achieve. And yeah, so I was very impressed by the solidarity that we found amongst the informal workers. I mean, they have nothing. They're selling their furnitures, they're selling whatever they have, also to support their peers. So there was a great solidarity amongst them, which we didn't observe amongst the entire value chain. So this was yeah, my first impression. I can also already go into or trying to answer one question that came in from Lucy. Thank you, Lucy, for your question. Yes, your question was about the gender aspects and the gender representation also in this survey. Yes, we had it on the radar. We actually, the tour guides that went out always went out, the two of them together, a female and a male tour guide, so that they could be more sensitive on also maybe gender aspects. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think we had 54% of the interviewees were women. Also, we had some transgender people who were part of the interviewees. So this is my answer to your question. Yeah, just feel free to ask more if
Thank you, Sibyl, for your perspective. So now we have heard from tour operators, tour guides, and also human rights for tourism organization. So next, we would like to ask Kun James from SOS as a civil society. We have heard that SOS Foundation managed to continue to support communities in need, working together with more hotels and retail shops to receive more food supply. Could you please share with us how it happened and what was the process of that success?
Absolutely, why? So when SOS started operating in 2016, the following year, a few hotels have joined our program, which is called Food Rescue Program. 7 hotels have signed an agreement to join our mission, and it grew in 2018 with 11 more hotels joining. Then in 2019, 21 more hotels have joined. In short, the hotel sector has been our #1 ally and was our main staple in terms of food donation. Basically, these hotel kitchens are, they're aiming to reduce their food waste. That's why working with us was a win-win solution for them. So how it works, whatever surplus food they have, either from their buffet or fine dining, they will put them in our food containers. They will keep it in their cooling fridge until our food rescue ambassadors arrive to collect them. And then, of course, we gather the data by weighing them first before we deliver them to the community for distribution. At the end of each month, they will get an analyzed data report. And that's how simple it is. That's how simple it is to be part of our program. That's how simple it is to prevent food waste. And of course, our aim is to get more hotels to address their food waste problem and join our program and support our mission. That's how it works, Why.
Thank you, James, for sharing the process. So this is like the case study of the successful, how to deal with the problem during this crisis. So let's get back to Rina from the tour operator side. Rina, from the survey, we have seen one of the biggest fears of DMC right now is like losing your key workers, such as tour guides, local staff, and local suppliers, either because they have to go back hometown or find new jobs outside the tourism area until we reopen. What do you think is the best way to retain those workers? And what is the biggest challenge?
I think
yeah.
the key and the biggest barrier here obviously is cash, which reserves have shrunk after 1 year without activity and without income. There's no magic here without cash. I think everyone would agree with this. It is very complex to retain any workers. The economy in general, whose GDP usually included 20% of tourism, is severely affected as well. Also, reducing any possible alternatives. But we can, however, try and help with the transparent communication. It is no secret how difficult this period is. And actually, it is no shame to say as we as a company are not in a perfect shape. And we can be clear on that with our partners, both formal and informal. But we also need to let them know that what perspectives are, when we expect activity to come back, what a honest assessment of the situation is, and as we are in direct contact with the source market, so they at least have a timeline and can plan accordingly.
Thank you, Rina, for sharing that. Yeah, I agree that the income is the most important thing. Like we need it first. Yeah, that's true. So everything can go on. And what about the perspective from the background from Jeep? Yeah, let's move to Jeep. Do you agree with informal worker support that was suggested in the survey, such as receiving the training, health standards, marketing, product development, and more accessible support from the government? Do you agree with all of this? And if so, can you tell us why and what else can be done for these cases?
Yeah. For myself, I'm strongly believe that if those people get help and support from the other people, like government or even like some organization, to the subject that we were talking about training or even help them, I believe that they will have like at least, you know, that effect to them is increasing hope, you know, to the people that yes, that's mean like people, there are people who helping us, who are not leaving us alone and get lost in the air. We don't know what to do, but there are some people, you know, someone who think about them and trying to help. And also they believe that the tourism, you know, will be happened, you know, so they can be ready when the tourism in Thailand reopen next year or 2022. You know, I believe that it will be good on them. And for the second question, you asked me what else can be done. What I'm seeing so far, what happening in Thailand, especially at the moment with the third cluster that happened in Thailand, is quite serious, even more stronger, and I think it's worse than the first and the second time because it's spreading very fast, and have seen people struggling, and you know, and people doesn't have any knowledge how to cope with it. What I want to suggest is like, what my idea that I see is, for example, like, you know, if the government or some organization, for example, helping, such as, taxi driver, you know, tuk-tuk driver, who I used to interview them, they really have no concern about hygienic or how to prevent spreading disease. So they only want to survive day by day just to get customers. So it doesn't matter how, they will just, you know, they need money. But if their government or organization supports them with supply, such as help them with like the screen, you know, like a screen shield in between passengers and driver, and or even in taxi, like taxi driver, they don't have money, you know, these people. But if there's someone who help them and tell them, if you do this, we support you, and it will, you know, increase safety and you know, like health to passengers, and you know, that will be good. But that is just one of the suggestions, one of my ideas that we can do.
Yeah.
Oh, one furthermore, I think if the government could work with the local leaders, community, you know, and then so the local leaders can also work with the people in their own community, you know, so they get support with supplies from the government and knowledge from the government, and the leaders can spread all of this to their own communities. So it's not also just only, you know, like the country have to do it, the government have to do it, but everybody needs to be responsible. And once it's better, then people are ready to reopen the country with safety.
Thank you for your perspective and example of what needs to be done for the informal workers. Before we go on, let's look at Q&A section. We have few questions from the audience from Pratik So. Maybe this is for Rina. When Thailand opens up for tourism again, how long will it take for the hotels, restaurant guides to start up again? Have many workers left in the industry for good, or will they be back quickly? What do you think about this?
See, at the moment, if you ask me, many left. Yes, of course, many have left because of, in terms of finances. So if most of them have to leave and have to choose a different field, and then thinking that they will come back once tourism is back, we are getting clients, business is good, for sure they'll be back. And it will not take that long. See, now the only issue is if we didn't have this third wave in Thailand, the possibilities were pretty high, but if we can speed up the vaccination, we can still control and things can be back on track soon. And everything will run smoothly, everything will be back to normal. It will take time, but it will be back soon. And I'm sure we can retain all the workers back as well.
I agree. So from this question, let's what about perspective from tour guide like Jip? Jip, what do you think about this situation? Like when they come back, and hearing from tour operator side from Rina, what do you think about this?
I agree with Rina. So far, we tour guide, I still talk with my colleagues, you know, we are trying to be ready for the reopening the country. And, but the problem is just like Rina said, vaccination. If the government could get more vaccines and people, you know, if it's faster, then it will be happen. And I'm sure that the business will be back. But so far, as you know, like, even today, the news is like the reserve for the vaccine is till next year already. This is only like only a group of people, you know.
There is another interesting question for this one, I think for James. Okay. Hello everyone from the UK. I'm at the University of Kent working on inclusive tourism in Southeast Asia. Really interesting that some respondents didn't want bank loans, soft loans, payment bank type microloans be more suitable.
Say why that this question is for me?
Yeah, sorry. Let it's mistake. Skip to another question from Nia. For this is the question for Sibyl. Sorry, James. Okay. Sibyl, do you have any specific best practice example from other destinations of how the informal sector can be supported by private industry other than training?
Yeah, I think not so many yet, but in a very small scale, we also saw some examples within Thailand when we went out and we heard how, for example, there was a collaboration between the private sector, DMCs, and sometimes also civil society organizations on the ground keep them going, to make sure, you know, they can find some alternative incomes. I mean, what we have also seen is some people moving or focusing more on the domestic sector. So there is a hope also that through domestic tourism, which is there also, they will get some alternative incomes until the international tourism reopens again. So trying to focus on the domestic market, which includes actually, I mean, we had some very concrete examples of changing the decoration, because Thai people would want another decoration in their rooms than, for example, in a small guest house, than international tourists. So really specifically trying to reorient the market, at least for the time being. But this market is also very competitive. I mean, there have been domestic tour operators already before who are much more better positioned to actually move towards this segment. So so trying to reorient to other sectors. I mean, there's also a question, you know, how many will actually have to come back? Have there been too many in terms of maybe also lower quality offers in tourism? Will the new normal be maybe less, but more better quality? Also regarding the question that came in from Patrick earlier, and we did have consultations and discussions with people saying, you know, they do fear that, especially the tour guides who are usually who speak many languages, who are very experienced, for them to find maybe a job in an international company or finding a more secure job is an option. So that some are considering moving away. And if you get like a job in an international company, you might decide not to come back to the tourism industry. So that's of course a fear, especially now that, I mean, we were talking about reopen. When we started this assessment, we were talking, of course, we thought it would reopen much quicker, and it got prolonged, and now, as you saw, the assumptions are that it won't open until next year. So there is still quite some patience and money needed to actually survive until tourism reopens. It's still another year almost, most probably, for international tourism to reopen. So the question is really how to survive this other year.
Great, Sybil, and thank you very much. And you know, just to add on that, I actually wanted to go back to the question that Mark was asking. And I think actually, James, we will have you try to answer this. You're working in the civil society sector, and you're working with a lot of marginalized communities across Thailand. Now, James, when we were doing our survey, most of the informal workers that we were speaking to were saying that they didn't necessarily want to take on more debt. They didn't want those official loans. Mark from the UK is asking if, you know, sort of soft loans or, you know, the community loans, for example, the Grameen Bank type loans, would microloans be more suitable in this situation?
To have a quick answer on that, when we speak to our recipients, they have a different ways and different approach on how to survive in this pandemic. But what is significant to what we have learned and what we have found is that they're not opting with this option. They're actually looking for more practical ways on how to survive and make money and earn money during this pandemic. So that's why most of the, let's say, hotel employees before, they have now either borrowed from their parents to come up with a small business in their community, like selling food or selling drinks. They have come in a more practical way because I think they understand that, you know, borrowing more money and having bigger debts in the future will not be beneficial for them. So I think this is just one of the significant options we noticed from the recipients that we have talked to.
So you're saying whether it's a microloan or a loan, it doesn't make any difference. It's more that they need to work within their family and friends for that?
Right, that is correct.
Okay, good. And, you know, James, I think another thing that was actually kind of interesting from the discussions we had was your organization's work with tourism companies. and sort of the criteria that you would set on how that happens. I think that's actually an important point to re-emphasize. How can tourism companies and civil society work effectively together?
Okay, so that's a very good question, Graham. Definitely, there's a way for us to work together. I mean, we've been working with the hotel industry for quite some time already, and it is a proven and tested program that there is a way. We tackle food waste, we tackle hunger. The hotel industry are, it's a complete industry, and they cater to a different purpose. But they have something that is common with our mission, which is food waste. And they're also addressing their sustainability mission. They're trying to reduce waste. They're trying to make sustainable ways to attract their customers. Just a perfect example for that is Capella Bangkok. They just recently opened, and they've been part of our food rescue program. And what they did recently is that they incorporated our rescue kitchen program to their customer experience program. This time, not focusing on the quality of the property room, the amenities, facilities, or food, but the quality of experience as well. Which is a good education to food waste and exposing their guests to a solution. They created a list of local authentic experiences that they offer to their guests, including SOS Rescue Kitchen. If guests would like to experience being in a local community, engaging with local community and volunteers, learning how to cook authentic local Thai food, and experience distributing food and making an impact, they can join our rescue kitchen. We will provide briefing and the whole experience. And what will they bring back home? That authentic, meaningful, unforgettable, and impactful experience. I think this can be the future of the tourism industry, working with us as well. A perfect example that can pave way to a new meaningful tourism. Gone are the days where we trap our guests to experiencing common sights. Travel will be more meaningful to people this time, I believe, and they will look for a more sustainable way. They will seek for meaningful experiences, and that's just my opinion.
Okay, yeah, you're hitting those magic words: meaningful, authentic, local. I mean, those are the magic words. Thank you, James. I'm noticing the time, and I'm just thinking that, do you have some final questions for our panelists before we hit the end of the hour?
Yes, we have one question for everyone to just summarize. 1 minute final suggestion from what you have learned from this project that for Thai tourism informal workers, just 1 minute for each of you, and also your advice for the future. Maybe we start at Jeff.
Well, just like I said earlier, I've learned a lot from this project, that there are those people who need help, there are those people who need supports, and they don't know what to do. And I think through this project, there is some hope that there will be something happened, like some of the training campaign or anything that we can do to help the non-formal workers to get ready, for the reopening of the country. Yeah, so that's what I learned.
Thank you. What about perspective from tour operator? Rina, what do you think about this?
I've actually learned a lot, and I would like to give a message to all the informal workers. They're essential part of Thailand's experience. A street food meal followed by a exhilarating tuk-tuk ride to flower market can't be beaten. And a trip to Thailand would lose half of its interest without these Thai informal workers.
Yeah, please speak out. Thank you. What about Sibyl? What do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Rina, also for your statement. I think that's very important. I mean, everyone was aware about the hardship, but still there was very little knowledge how exactly they're suffering and what kind of alternatives they're finding, and if they're finding alternatives, who is helping them, because often they don't get access to government aid, etc. Another factor that really is very impactful is the mental impacts. I think we shouldn't underestimate, besides the financial hardship, also the mental impacts they're experiencing, up to suicidal thoughts, etc. So I think that now, I'm just trying to get this urgency out. So now it's really the question, instead of just talking about how will tourism look afterwards, once it's reopened, really the question, how can those people now be somehow supported for this, let's say, coming year, until international tourism is taking up again. So I was impressed by the agility of some actors, and I'm sure that coming together, more will be possible, instead of, it's difficult to focus on more than your own struggles in the moment. So I'm just encouraging everyone to come together. And there was also a question in the chat, like who could play a role, for example, to train informal workers. And I mean, we brainstormed a lot on this also in the roundtable, and I think we see a lot of opportunities for the actors, even tour guides who have been furloughed, who are now considering maybe moving to other sectors, to now play a role, also reaching out to informal stakeholders. And yes, I mean, some finances is needed, of course, as a minimal income for the people who are involved within this next year to stick to the industry, to trust the industry to come back. And as we saw in the survey, I mean, they're all wanting tourism to come back. I mean, I think 89% of the surveyed stakeholders said, they want international tourists to come back because they just see they're experiencing great hardship.
Thank you, Sibyl. And next, James, what do you think about this one?
Sure. I think it has been very meaningful involvement with this project, because we were able to share what we have found in our ecosystem. And what we also discovered is that there is a common denominator, that there is always a way for us to collaborate and do something together to achieve each goals. I mean, we're aiming on a different goal, and the tourism industry is aiming on a different goal, but there will always be something common for us to work together to achieve something better, and that is towards sustainability. And I'm glad that we are finding ways on how we can work together to address whatever sustainable problems, and that we are an available option that the tourism industry or hotel industry can look at and see that, hey, we can work together. Maybe there's something that we can do to make things better in the future once things are back to, let's say, new normal that we will experience soon.
Thank you very, very much, everyone.
And thank you, Wai. I mean, that's been a really interesting conversation, and a lot of important points have come out. We're starting to get to the top of the hour, and it's time for us to draw the webinar to a close. Before we do end, though, I do want to add on to what Sybil was saying about this project and about where it's going. Together with Focusright, we have continued reaching out to different partners to see how we can take what we have learned and implement it into more meaningful actions within the informal supply chain. This work is ongoing, and we're really pleased to have Yara Schreiber of the Roundtable on Human Rights and Tourism joining us today. And we've continued discussions with them about how we can take this further. So we're hopeful that soon, that's the second phase of this project will be able to come, where we'll actually be able to do more direct outreach into the informal sector. What we have learned is they're a crucial part of tourism. What we have also learned is we need to reach out and we need to offer the support that we can. Now, would like to thank all of our participants today for joining us. We hope that you have found the conversation of interest and stimulating. I also would very, very much like to thank our partners from Focusright for joining, and all of our different panelists, our guide Kunjib, James from SOS, Rena from EXO, and of course, Sybil from Focusright. On behalf of PATA, we would like to thank everyone and also to let you know that the recording of this webinar will be available from our website, www.pata.org. With that, thank you everyone, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.